Okay, welcome to September 16th, Session 2 of the new AD's workshop that we have here. Whoops, back up one. There we go. I'm going to do the presenting today. I'm Jim Piccolo, the District 1 Director. Scott Norty, who may come in later from Clover Park. Tommy Doyle will not be with us today, maybe later. He's doing a presentation today. And Dave Ticker will come in and out from the WSSAAA Executive Director that we do with this. The mentoring committee, as we've done this before, and some of you have been involved last week, and if not, these are the different districts. There are 9 in the state of Washington, as you know. Each one has an assignee to help out with the mentorship program. Dave Cullen's with us today. Dave is from District 5. Tim's not there today. Bob Downing from District 2 is here today to help and oversee and go on. So therefore, you can see what's going on in our mentoring for the state of Washington. We're hoping to take this program nationwide. This is what our goal is not only statewide, but nationwide, to help all those new young ADs, year 1 through 3, even the older ADs, to come through and help out with mentoring. Our scheduling, this is Session 2. We have another next Tuesday, the 23rd. Then we have another one on September 30th, and then we don't go until once a month after that. And you can see that we're avoiding a couple of the major days that are going on in that schedule that we have put together for over the year. Okay, remember we're in 3 different modes here. We're in a discovery mode, we're getting down to work mode, and looking ahead. That's how we sort of divided up the mentorship program. Today we're working on some of the other things. Go to the webinar, email reminders that you're going to get once a week. You'll get an email reminder about 1 hour prior to the session. Remember, if you cannot attend the session, no big deal. We're recording these, and you can get them off the WSSAAA website. And I have it right down here. Let's see if I get the right one. Oops, that's the national one. Excuse me. I'll get the state one. And all it is WSSAA.com. And if you go up here and you find it where it says the mentoring program. And if I was to click onto the mentoring program there, come on, baby, open up. New AD's video session, it'll show up right here. And this is last session, Session 1 session that we did before. You'll find Session 2 up there and 1, so that you can always go back to and deal with in those sessions that exist there. So I'm going to get out of that for a minute. There we go. I'll come back to that. All right, clock hours. If you have anything with clock hours, here's where you want to email Dave Ticker about that you're interested in those clock hours. Send that email to Dave and request those clocks, and he will give you those through the WSSAAA organization over the period of time, so that it helps you with your salary advancement here. Some other places across the United States, they don't use them, but here in the state of Washington, obviously we do. Okay, it goes on 9:30 on Tuesdays, 24/7 on the WSSAAA. Make sure with the LTI classes, and today we will actually talk about a couple of LTI classes, the 502s, the 504, 506, 508, which are the legal classes. I'll show it to you on the national website. And those pertaining to exactly what we're sort of talking about today. So you're going to see that as we go on in the presentation. So today we're in the discovery mode still, which we're going to talk about contest management. Later on we'll talk about getting down to work and there's some mistakes and what to look forward to. It comes out. We're all going to make mistakes, folks. Always going to make mistakes. Just matter how you deal with them as we get through them. Okay, the first one we're going to deal with. And again, Bob and you guys that want to chime in, feel free to chime in anytime dealing with this. But I want to talk about contest management as a young AD and even as an older AD dealing with things. The contest management is a real important piece for you to spend time that you have to be organized with. When people come to the game, all they want to do is come to the game and leave the game. And if everything goes smooth, you've done your job. If everybody shows up like you're supposed to, you've done your job, and nobody thinks the difference. The only time you hear about it, when somebody doesn't show up or some glitch in the program goes through, and how you deal with that part of it. So my first key thing with contest management is keep the big picture in your mind's eye. Think of the big picture. I'm going to give you a game. It's a basketball game, and you've got the home game going to happen. What's the big picture that's going to happen out there? What time are the teams going to arrive? What time is the officials, more than one, because you can have more than one contest going on, when they're going to arrive? Who are the people that are going to work your gates? Who's going to do supervision? Who's going to do all the little mechanical things that are involved in that contest? So your working personnel is really, really important, and you got to have a plan. We, when I was the athletic director, we had a plan, an actual sheet that listed all the jobs that were possible for that night's contest. And I'm talking about basketball first. It's the easier, sort of an easier one to do of all of them. But making sure that I had all those pre-assigned and talked to. So, getting back to the personnel piece, I would advertise who would want to help out sell tickets, take tickets, score clocks, scorebook, all those little pieces that make that game operate. Who was the custodian, and who are the people that are going to help me supervise that? That would be in that list, and I would meet with all those people, probably a month before the season started. 9 out of 10 times, your workers are the same workers you've had over year after year after year after year, and they want to come back because they want to serve the kids, but they also want to serve you as the athletic department goes on there. So it's real important that you get good quality people. I know you'll get schools that say, well, why can't you get volunteers? And I've told them, I said, you can do volunteers, but the problem with the volunteers, they're not always there. They're volunteers, and there's nothing really to hold them and say, I want to be there. The little bit of money that you give them does hold the people there. The second reason I don't use a lot of volunteers is because of the accountability rules and the laws dealing with ASBs. You got to make sure you got people in there that are accountable. You got to make sure people are there that understand what the ASBs do, understand money, how that works, how that flows, at least in the ticket people part of it. Questions on that, Bob? What do you guys do in the smaller 1B schools?
Well, we're not paying people right now. I've got people that have been doing it for several years in a row. So through all the years, I pretty much have the same people. I got people coming back to help out that we've been very fortunate that don't even have kids in our school anymore. They just keep coming back to help out. So
right now, Bob,
people know what's going on. So
Bob is from a small 1B private school.
Yeah.
Okay, so their accounting is a little bit different. They don't have to always follow the ASB laws. That's just the way it is with the private entity, where a public school's got to follow those ASB laws, and it's real important with the ticket and how you account for them and how you don't account for the tickets. Did you take the beginning tickets off and you clip them onto the form, and do you take the last ticket, clip it on the form, and do the numbers all match when the money all comes out? And if it doesn't, you got to be responsible for it. Was there an overreach, an underreach, and why? 9 out of 10 times it's a ticket error. Transforming back and forth with ticket errors that goes on here. Anything else I want to add to that, at least the ticket people of that? Because those are real important pieces as we deal with setting up the people. At least get that part of it done. And what time they need to show up. So I would go over the whole program with them, and they know that every week they were going to get a sheet, a working sheet, so they knew what time they were going to be there, what the game was going to be, and their job. 9 out of 10 times, again, it was the ticket taker is going to be the ticket taker. The pass person is going to be the pass person. The ticket seller is the ticket seller. If you had more than one ticket seller, then you would share those jobs. Or if you had a big game, you may have 4 ticket takers or 3 ticket takers, depending on the size of the event. But you want to make sure you're communicating that with those people for each one of the seasons, fall, winter, and spring. Security, supervision, who's going to do it? At least in the Wesco, every home event, I'd have an administrator at every home event, no matter what it was. We would have security at every home event. And on the big games like the football and so forth, we'd hire the police. And I would sit and talk to the police or the sheriff's department and making sure that they had a schedule, making sure what their responsibility was, and what that first line of defense would be, and when I'm going to call them in and when I'm not going to call them in. Most of the time, it's a visible thing. They park their cars out in front, a couple cars, they're out there visibly walking. That stops 90% of all your problems right off the top. They see them. And then they're used as a resource of which to help you out. In Ohio, how do you guys use the supervision there with Ohio, Bruce?
Well, it really doesn't vary a great deal, I'm sure, with what you have there in Washington. A lot of it is cultural within a particular district. As much as we would like to think that people would love to volunteer, the reality of it is the cultures in those schools is there's some level of stipend or reimbursement that's appropriate. We do try to find certainly some community people, and there's trade-off opportunities where you can, in lieu of paying someone as an usher or as a scorekeeper, you might consider trading off and providing season tickets if you provide that, for example, in basketball, or maybe just an all events pass for those people. So I think there are some creative ways, but I think the point that Jim made here about sitting down prior to the season, and I would suggest strongly that's an annual piece. Never assume that everybody gets it, especially if there's a couple little nuances that you want to emphasize that particular sports season. It's always a good drill. You may have to do it over a period of time, but it is a very critical step to make sure everybody's rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, we even did that with our administrative team. When I sat down with them, we did that at private. Who's going to cover which game? And we go through the whole season, which games were going to be covered on home and away to help out, and which one were the big games that were coming up that we needed extra supervision. And then we talked about playoff, which I always called the second season of the winter or the fall or the spring. And then we had the state, which I called the third season, because each one of those were different seasons. But it's a real communication piece, keeping the big plan in mind. Have a plan, worker sheets, so everybody, as Bruce said, is on the same page, going in the same direction, and that you have a process of which everybody goes through, and it's a fair process for everybody to work at. Because you may have a lot of ticket takers that want, or ticket sellers or givers, and you got to share all those jobs and share that everybody gets a little bit of a piece of the pie, because you surely don't want to overwork them, and you sure don't want to leave them back. Setup's important. What time do you set up? What time can you get into the gym? What time do you get to the field? Having everything set up. I mean, I was the type of guy who wanted everything set up, and then I had to have a half hour, 45 minutes of just downtime where nothing was going to happen until those teams started coming. I just needed that for my own clear, but I'd end up washing the floors, sweeping things up, making sure the tables are all set up, pencils, pens, whatever it needed to have happen. Because I wanted my workers to come knowing that they had to do nothing but show up and do their job. It wasn't their job to set the table up. It wasn't their job to go find a bunch of pencils. It wasn't their job for the official to walk in and go, where do I go? I had people lined up to take that because I wanted to make sure we were good hosts. Win, lose, or draw didn't make a difference. I wanted to make sure we were good hosts for those teams always coming to our schools and stuff. Clean up. Who's your janitor? You may end up helping clean up. What do you do at the stadium? Make sure that everybody understands what their job is to clean up. We have an ASB help us clean up with garbage cans around, and at the end of the games or the events, they would help do that. Friday night football, there was nothing for me to go and help the janitor. Understanding his or her job, you working with them, makes big PR, huge PR. Concessions, who's running those for the night? And making sure you know what the concession laws are. Making sure you have health permits out there. Making sure that you have a health card and a food handler's permit for those people that are running the concessions. Those are really important because you can get shut down right away, right in the middle of your concessions of the game, if you don't have those items lined up. And where do you go? For example, in Snohomish County, where we live, and our school is at, we'd end up having to go to the Snohomish County Health Department, and then we may end up having to train some people. And who's going to pay for the training? We may have to have people with food handlers come in. We may have to have that license. You got to know all that process because they will shut you down real quick. And making sure that you're prepared for those concessions. And then who's going to run it? Do you share it with all the ASB kids? Do you share it with the different groups? Or is one group ahead of it? Or do you have one person ahead of all the concessions and they just end up setting out, it's going to be the history club today, or it's going to be the French club, or it's going to be the softball team that's going to run concessions. You got to have that plan and how it works so people are going to know that they're part of the success of that whole organization. Clock operators, obviously, if you have a new clock system, you've got to be the teacher of them. You've got to be able to know that they understand how to run a possession clock, understand how they run a possession clock for wrestling or for basketball, know what the times are, when to turn it off, when to not, when does it count if it hits the rim, doesn't hit the rim. Those type of items you need to teach your clock operators. Now, if you've had them there for a long time, they understand and they have a passion for it, but it's important. And then if the clock goes down, what do? You've got to have a plan. Sometimes when that clock goes down, it goes back to whom? Does anybody know who it goes back to if the clock goes down? It goes back to the official. It goes right back to the official. Officials is actually the official time on the thing. But you have to have some type of clock mechanism back on there, which you go back to a stopwatch or whatever it is if that clock goes down. And it will happen, I guarantee you. It will happen. Announcers, in the NIAAA does have an announcing group that deals with that on the NIAAA, and they give you some real scripts about a half a dozen different scripts that you can use with announcing. Your league, your district may have announcing scripts. Use them, and use them wisely. And a good announcer is going to save you a lot of time and get a lot of information out for you to help you. And then train those people to go on there. Train them to help them as best you can. Last thing you got to have for your contest is, I'm doing this, make sure you have the program on the roster. Remember that when the patron comes, all they're really concerned about is they're looking for Johnny, Joe, Susie's name in a program. And they want to see a picture. That's what they're looking for. The rest of all that other stuff means nothing to them, but that's what they want. They want a roster to see who those people are that's involved. Anybody else want to add something else?
Just make sure your announcer knows he's not doing a play-by-play.
Right. That's a good point. It's not a play-by-play. It's exactly, and you got to be I guess the word is non-discriminatory between either team. You can't make one team look real good and one real bad. You're supposed to be really nonpartisan in the thing and just present the way it's supposed to be announced. That's the key part to that. That's a good point. Anything else?
Jim, this is Dave Cullen here. A question, and I don't know, maybe later on in the presentation, but it has to deal with emergency planning.
Okay, emergency planning for what?
Well, like your EMTs, if you have to have trainers, those types of things. And I don't know if that's coming up a little bit later, if you need to address that now under supervision and security.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And of course, I'm the school I was at was a little bigger school, but we had a trainer on site for all events, a trainer, and then we have a class of trainers, so they had student trainers helping it out, but we had a trainer on site at all times when there was a home event. If there was not a home event, then that trainer would take some of his kids and classes and go to the event with the team. So example, on a Friday night, if there was nothing else going at home, the football team was taking off and going to some place, he or she and the group would go and be the trainer of that team. That would be part of it. The other part of it is that we would also have an EMT there. And some of the rub you're going to have, why do you have one at the football games only and not at soccer matches? Why do you have EMTs at football games and not basketball? Those are really good questions. You have to know what you want to do with your management part of it. Some of the local EMT says, we can't be on service there, but we're on call. And so you rely on your trainer, and if the trainer says you got to call 911, you call 911, and there's your emergency plan, whatever you worked out with the trainer, you and everybody else. Knowing that the trainer, at least in our school, they had the final authority in that. The coach may want to go there and go, oh, Joey's got to get in this game. And the trainer says, no, Joey's not going in the game. Who has the authority? And we made it very clear, trainer has the authority. Coach does not. Your job is to coach. Your job is not to train when we had a trainer on site. Those are some little ins and outs that we always worked with. Did that help your question?
Yeah, it does. And another thing, too, I think is important, too, Jim, is that as far as for your announcer, make sure that they have some emergency plans in case the lights go out, any type of emergency situation comes up, that they have some type of script or an idea of how to help those people who are in the stands exit the building if they need to exit the building, or just remain calm.
And that's a good point. What if you're at a football stadium and the lights go out? And that's happened. What do? Now, your lights are supposed to come emergency lights, but do your security people, do they have flashlights? Does your announcer can make the announcement like you said, hey, just remind, quiet, everybody stay in their seats, don't go running around. And then, of course, you have your plan, whatever your plan was going to be with the people with the flashlight to help those people get out of the stands, or just have them sit until the lights came back on. You're right. You got to have an emergency plan. What happens if the lightning comes in and you got to shut down the game, which happens? There's a lot of that goes on there, and that's a good point. Excellent point. Okay, moving on. Contest management, money, tickets, security. Make sure you have all together. You know what passes are acceptable and what passes aren't acceptable in your league, in your district, and how are they distributed among all your leagues in different schools. In the Westco up here, we have in District 1. I have a huge poster that's made of all the passes, which is about 6 of them, that can be used to get into a game, and only these can be used. And we give those out to every one of the schools. They're allowed to take 2 or 3, whatever it is. And then I also have it on the website. In case you lose it, they can get it off the website. So there's no question when somebody hands you a pass, Well, I can get in this game. No, you can't. These are the only passes that are accepted. And so that's part of your ticket management part, making sure you understand. And if there's an argument there, you got to make sure that you have a radio or you're by there that which to help that ticket taker and protect that ticket seller or ticket taker that, hey, no, this is the way it's going to be. And you're the final say with that part. Because you want to protect those people because they're your frontline individuals. And they will get hammered by some people. Well, why I got to pay $7? Or why I got to pay $6? Well, how come you raise prices? You know, they've got to help out with those type of issues, and they will come up. Numbering and accounting, that's that part I was talking about. What type of working cash? Who gets the working cash? How does it work? Who gets the money in there? Who does not? How's that set up? Those are all pieces that you're going to need to spend time with and help people with as you're working through the cash box, gate receipt, deposits, and accountability. Again, private schools are different than the public schools in some of that accountability. But in the public school, this is where the scrutiny comes in when you have the auditor system. And I guarantee your superintendent does not want to have an audit finding dealing with mishandling of cash because it's public money. And that's real important. Other things out there? Big game deposits. Who deposits the money? Where does it go? Do you put it back in your office? Do you take it home? What do you do with it? Our rule was at Stanwood, it automatically goes right to the bank that night. And if I had a big gate, let's say it was a $10, $12, $15,000 gate in football, I had the police follow me as I went to the bank to deposit that money. Who counts the money? I had my ticket takers. There's 3 or 4 different people that counted that money. I had the police standing by the office where they were counting the money to make sure. And once it was accounted for and everything else, again, it went to the bank would count it out, we match up whatever it was the next day or that Monday after a Friday football game or Saturday to what the money was to be. So that was all accounting processes, and we had to keep all that to verify the money that we were coming in and coming out with in each one of the gates that we charged at. Huge issue. Other things added to that? Tom, are you there? Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Contest official signers. Making sure you know how to access the officials and where do you send your reports to. In the state of Washington, we all went to Arbiter. So when you send your reports into the officials associations, whichever one services your schools, you can double check to make sure that they're covered with Arbiter. Now, saying that, it never hurts to have a phone call to make sure that we're all ready to go. And my issue would be with the phone call would be saying, who's coming to the game because I want to greet John or Fred or Mary when they come to the game to make sure that they have a name and a face that comes, and I put them in the locker rooms or the dressing rooms or wherever they were going to go for that game. In basketball, we would play 3 games back-to-back. We'd play a freshman game, a JV game, then a varsity game, or we'd play JV and a freshman game at the same time. So I may have 6 officials there for basketball at one time. But I'd also tell those officials, I don't want anybody to leave until I had the varsity officials that were there to make sure they were covered for the varsity game. And they would stay until they saw the varsity official. Now, the varsity official may show up halftime at the JV game, but at least I knew I had varsity officials and I had a backup plan to go with it. Relationship, yeah.
This is Bruce Brown. Just kind of as an add-on to that, that's an area that using some student helpers or even the secretary, but if you're minimal office staff, if you've got some student helpers, that's a safety net piece by having those individuals call 24 hours before. Even though Arbiter's a pretty good system, there's always the potential that somebody miss putting it on their calendar. So we always had our student assistants make a cursory phone call, even if it was just to leave a message, say, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night's event. If you have any questions, call our office. And it's surprising that once a month somebody would call and say, gee, I didn't have it on my schedule, or an injury has happened to that official, and making sure that they've got a replacement.
Right, and I think that's an excellent thing. That's how to build some of that relationship with the officials and yourself. The other thing with building that relationship, have water there for them. Have some type of snack for them at a place Make sure the place is clean for them and ready to go. And I'd even go so far to have towels for them and ready in case they needed towels, or water, a little bit of food. I had an assigned person during game time that would take them to the locker room and out of the locker room, because I didn't want any of my fans, good, bad, or indifferent, to make comments to the officials, and I want to make sure they were protected. So like on a big game, as soon as that game was over with, those officials are running off the court, I had a guy or a gentleman or lady with them right away, the security, taking them right into the locker room, and then nobody was involved into that site where they were at, getting dressed or cooled down or whatever they were doing at the time. Same with football, wherever it was. The officials wanted to make sure that they understand that they're welcome, 2, that they were going to be protected, 3, that I was there to assist them, whatever they needed to do to make their job better. I think it's important with the officials part of it. Then I give them comments or complaints or praise. You know, the officials know when they did a good game or not a good game, and they know when they didn't do a good call or a bad call or something happened in that game. But you know that you've got to rely on them to do their job the best they possibly can and support them no matter what it is. You've got to be colorblind when it comes to that, to whether or not it's, and I mean that sincerely, you don't care whether it's your team or their team or the officials, you're there to support them. And the call is the call, and the way we go with it. Supervision of that, make sure you have those people there taking care of it. Crowd control, that emergency plan thing that was brought up, all right, what happens if the lights go out? What happens if the scoreboard goes out? What is your plan? You got to be prepared. One time in a game, we had a backboard break right in the middle of a varsity event. What do? You stop the game, cancel the game, and I move the game. We happened to be there. We had 2, 4, 6 baskets on the main floor, so I moved everybody over to another side court, and we finished the game after we cleaned up all the mess and everything else to get the game finished. You may not have that ability. You may say the game is over with at that point, and then you got to find out, what do I do? If it's a varsity game for a varsity contest for league, you may have to replay it. If it isn't, it's a non-league, you may end it right where it's at. Those are things you would have to work out with your league and other school to find out what are the protocols that you need to do. But have that emergency plan. What if you had a person that fainted up there in the stands? How do you handle it with the game going on? There's all those little emergency plans that take place, or somebody shows up under the influence. How do you deal with it? And how are you going to handle it? You got to have those type of plans or involvement. I think those are real important. You can't get all the scenarios, but you got to be able to step up and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do at the time. Questions on that? Security at home games as well as away games are just as important. Who's going to be there? I check in. When I went to the game, I would check in because I knew everybody was there, so I'd check and say, hey, I'm here. I'm over there for security. I'm on my side of the field over there, or the bench, or whatever it is. I'm here if you need any help. Because your job is to be, it's not necessarily watch the game. It's there to really be security. You're really watching your kids and your fans. Other things?
Going back to the referees.
Yeah.
Let the referees know who's in charge if there's a problem. They see something in the crowd or somebody's saying something to them or whatever, so the referees know who to go to.
Excellent.
If there's a concern or problem at the game.
Who's the go-to person? Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
That's an excellent deal, Bob. Okay, next. Contest management, school clubs. Who's going to run them? Like I said, is a booster club running them all? Does your school, ASB, run them all? Who's doing it? And what's the plan to take care of the concessions during the different events? Whether it's soccer, basketball, football, freshman games, whatever it is, what's the concession? And who's managing that? Who's managing the food? Who's managing the money? Who's managing that facilities that's going to go on with that point? And it can be a big problem if you don't have it together with another person, because it should not just be you. Smaller schools different, bigger schools, you need some more help. That's just the way it is. One of the other things we did on those is special events. Remember, you got homecomings, you got parent nights, senior nights. How are you planning all that in advance? There wasn't a time that I'd had at a halftime at a football game. Even soccer's really small. You can't do it much, but I do some introduction to soccer. In basketball events, I'd have little kids as much as I possibly could be involved. I'd have some type of activity going on at halftime. And my reasoning was trying to get more people in the community, more kids to buy in to see what the event was. And the bottom line of my whole thinking was I get more people into the stand, I get a little bit more money into the coffers. And if I have a good product out there, maybe they'll come back again. And they want to become a Stanwood Spartan, or they want to become an Arlington Eagle, or they want to become Ballard Beaver somewhere down the line because you've brought them in. So it's sort of a halftime, little bit of a show, whether it's the band, you got alumni, you're going to sponsor some big team that won a championship back in the 1940s, and you're bringing that team in at halftime and announce to them whatever it is that you're going to do. I'd have an event once at every halftime if possible, just to make it part of the show. Other things going on? Banquets and assembly. Those are special events. Who's doing the banquets for all the honor and awards at the end of the season? Is it you? Is it each individual sport? Or do you have a big encompassing one for the fall, one for the winter, one for the spring? Those are things you as a coaching staff will have to deal with in the school. And assemblies, who's it helps in the assemblies and what their assemblies are about. That you're going to be part of that point person, even though your ASB person is probably going to run it. You're going to, somewhere down the line, you're going to be involved with that piece. It's a part of the organization of what you're doing. It's that big picture, keeping it in mind. Part of that contest management is, do you allow face paints or do you not? Do you allow those people to come in all those different costumes? That's a league issue. Or is it an individual school issue that's involved in? Do you allow noisemakers or not? You have to know those contest rules. And obviously, you're not allowed to have any noisemaker except a megaphone for football. Can't have any other type of noisemaker out there. But you're going to have somebody's going to sneak it in. What do you do? And how are you going to handle it? And not trying to embarrass the person, but trying to handle it so they can enjoy the contest and make sure they understand the rules of what's going on. They may just not understand the rules. Okay, getting down to work. Mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes in this job all the time, but it's how you handle that mistake and how you learn from that mistake. And whether it's small, large, or not, you're going to make some out there. And then learn from them. Don't bury yourself. Don't get all upset with yourself because, God, you know, I should have had an extra ticket taker out there, a ticket seller when those, or God, I forgot about the pass gate person in there. Something's going to happen out there. That's okay. People are there to help you. And if you ask them, they will help you, knowing that, hey, those things go on. Unforgettable mistakes. Here's some unforgettable. No official at the scheduled contest. Now, let me tell you this. If you checked Arbiter and you called and said they had officials coming and you got their names, Joe and Mary are coming, and they don't make it, I'm guarantee you the people are going to blame you. That's part of what having those big shoulders, even though you've done all the stuff that goes on there. Knowing that in your mind, I did everything I was supposed to do, then you have to deal with the official association as part of that. Knowing that in the official association, if you have a scheduled official there and that official does not show up, you can enumerate the cost of that official and the buses and other incurred costs to which to put that event on if they didn't show and they were scheduled. It's interesting. It's in the WI handbook. Buses passing each other on the way to play a contest. I was just at Stanwood yesterday. We were talking with the AD there, and his secretary was dealing with one of those right away. One school thought they were coming, that we thought they were going. They were going to meet each other. What it was in the planning, the secretary called every day as she goes over her list of games they're going to have just to make sure everything was being set up. And it happened to be that phone call that called and say, no, we're coming to your place. No, I'm not. They had that conversation. They had it straightened out. Nobody knows except for the two schools, the two secretaries that talk, but that's that busing, passing thing. The other one, playing an ineligible player. Didn't have their physical, didn't have their insurance, didn't have all the clearances of the grades and eligibility that had to happen, and you played one. Not you personally, but you're the one that okayed it. You may not have okayed it, and your coach did it. There's a process you have to deal with that. That's a WI rule, state rule that you've got to deal with it. And there's nothing wrong with self-reporting. You've got to self-report. That's part of your integrity. That's part of who you are. As you send it forward, say, hey, this is what happened. This took place. Here's what we suggest the punishment is. The XYZ athlete's going to stay out X number of games by league rule. And we go from there. And we've changed our process. The process is this is what's happened next. Because you'll find coaches that will play the kid knowing that they weren't eligible. What do you do? And how do you handle it personnel-wise? That's a whole different issue. But reporting-wise, you need to do that and feel good about that. Hey, I'm doing the right thing. Here's what schools will say. How come school A has never had an eligibility violation? How can that happen? Think about that for a minute. How can a school A I don't care, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, has never had one eligibility violation. I don't know how that happens. They're out there. It's a matter of whether or not they're going to have the integrity to report it or not report it and deal with it. Other comments down there?
Jim, the concept of making mistakes along the way, I think that's something that you have to become somewhat comfortable with. But one of the little tips that I learned early on was I always had a little notepad that I would keep in my back pocket. And no matter where I was, if it was during the school day and I'm having a casual conversation with a coach, or I'm out on site just walking through, there are things that you'll note and observe or hear about that to minimize or to minimize forgetting about it, you want to jot those things down. I found that very effective to help minimize my risk and mistakes in the course of a school year.
That's super. Yeah, having that little note card makes a big difference. Just writing a little. Maybe it's writing down a positive thing about one of your coaches or one of your patrons in your stand. Right now, hey, I saw Joe. Joe works the bakery shop downtown, and he dropped Joe a little note. Say, hey, great job of being a good sport or whatever it is. Those little positive things are going to make a big difference. One last little piece on that is that at the end of every season, fall, winter, and spring, I would personally handwrite notes to all my workers, thanking them for their work, thanking them for the, helping me out and run the contest as smooth because it helps me do the job what it is. And then I usually give out, if they stay with me the whole season, I'd end up buying a Starbucks card or something. Or I may get them together at the end of the season, all the seasons in June, right before school's out, celebrating and buying a big Subway sandwich and saying, thank you. Here, help yourself to this. This is just a little bit of a thank you note. You'll get huge miles out of that. Huge miles, because they are now felt worthy, and they felt like they're worth something besides just that little bit of money that comes in there, that you really do care about them. So that it's an important PR piece. It's an important rapport building piece, and you're going to need those type of people which do a job, and they will come back and serve you over and over and over again. Anything else in that piece? Remember, you have a team of exceptional people that want to help and do the right thing. You need to be the leader for them and help them with that and understand what their job is. And if you don't understand what the job is, you need to go find out what that is. Ask more so that we can help. Somebody can help you to make sure you get it right. Work with them. Understand them. Make sure that you try to help them the best they can to make their job as easy as possible as can be. Ticket taker picks up the box. He or she knows that the slip's in there. The tickets are already stapled onto the sheet, knows what the number is, the color is of it, and the money that's already in the box. And all she has to do is go to the table that you have already set out, and she or he can sit down and start selling tickets and do what it is. Same with the ticket taker that goes on. By the way, by ASB laws, it's a rule, not a law, I should say a rule, that if you have a seller, you're supposed to have a ticket taker. 2 different people. The person taking the money and the person selling the money, if it's the same person, can be an issue by auditor standpoint. You've got to have a separation of those jobs. Goes on. It's just a little note. Thank the secretaries. Thank the custodians. I'd buy them a baseball cap, bring them a Spartan baseball cap. If I had money, I'd buy them a Spartan shirt. Could be a coat, whatever it is. My groundskeeper. I wanted them to wear it. I want them to wear it game day. I want them to be part of the pride of it. This is a whole team effort out here. Again, you get huge mileage on it. You're building relationships with those people and saying thank you to. You're out there washing the floors, cleaning the bathrooms. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. You'll get big mileage because you're walking their shoes, and they know you understand what they're going through, and you know that you're there to help them. You're not just saying, hey, your job is to go do the bleachers, and you walk away. That doesn't build rapport. I'll go help you with the bleachers. You've got to pull them out. I pull out a couple. I got to go to the tables. I'll help. Whatever it is. That's part of what building that relationship, and it's important for those people. Whether it's a gym or field management that goes on, setting up a track meet's huge. You can't rely on the grounds guy to do it all himself. You got to go out there and help them. And when you do, it just keeps building and building that relationship that goes on there. Thank your volunteers. They're huge people in your community. It'll speak about you and your job and your organization back to the community people. And you'll get it tenfolds back knowing that, hey, They run a good show up there, and he's doing the best he can with the time he's got. They'll support you, and they understand it. They'll always ask that. Other things looking for with your team. Okay. What has confused you so far? Is there anything out there that's confused you don't understand or missed with? Something out there that you would like to ask a question with on that part? Any specific type of problem you're facing? Okay, where do we go to get help? Where do we go to get help? You can get it from the people like myself or Tommy Doyle that's out there, your own league rep that's out there, somebody within your league itself. Maybe it's your principal that may get help. Maybe it's a coach who's been there forever to get some help. Don't be afraid to get the help and ask. Ask as much as you possibly can so that you know that you're trying to do the best you can do for the job. Other questions out there? Okay. Our next session is, oops, I'll get it here, excuse me, the 23rd. And we're going to cover these are the areas again at 9:30. But I wanted to show you one other thing. I didn't show you this. This is the NIAAA website. And I was telling you about 502. 502 is the general administrative principles and strategies and methods. It's a great hands-on class with a lot of hands-on information that you would need to do as your job as an athletic director. It's one of those basic real courses that has to happen down there. The other one are these 3 legal courses. They'll scare the crud out of you, but you got to take them. It's 504, 506, and 508. And they really give you an overview and an understanding of the different legal things that may happen, whether it's Title IX issues, whether it's bullying, harassing, whether it's your duties as risk management that exists out there. Huge, huge class, important. And then there's, where is it out here? Management stress techniques. I got to find out which number it is. Let's see here. There's your public announcer. Management, here it is. How to manage your fields, indoor plant, sports medicine. There are 40 classes that if you get on the NIAAA website, NIAA.org, that will help you to understand that you need to take some of those classes of which to help you with your job. Just a little thought there. And then the last thing I had here, don't forget about this outreach grant. New ADs 1 to 3, I would apply for it. You know, that you can get a free LTI 501, 502 class. You can get registered into the state conference. All we're asking you to do is join the WSSAAA organization, the state organization, the NIAAA, which is $135. And you're going to get like $350 worth of free stuff out of there, or $200 for the free stuff. But you got to register, and it's going to take the top 50 athletic directors for which to do that. But if you don't register, you can't win. You know, like if you don't register, you can't play. But make sure you get registered and get that off to Dave Ticker. His email is down here and so forth. If you need this application, just email me. Just email me it, and I'll be glad to send it to you. Any other questions? There's my email address. If I heard anything else, thank you very much, and I'll put this on the website and go from there. Bob?
Thank you.
Dave? Okay. Thank you very much, and I'll stop the recording. We'll go from there. Thanks, gentlemen. You bet. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.